everybody. Bob Ufer here in the chilly snake pit of Columbus, Ohio.
Elliott has the first down and more, and Elliott's going to have a touchdown.
Corum, watch out! Blake Corum, blazing speed. Can he get there? No, but he's down at the Ohio State 11.
Samuel cuts it back. Ohio State wins.
Stroud in trouble, and Stroud is sacked again.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State, the game of the day, the game of the year, the game of the decade. Call it what you will.
This is The Rivalry, sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
This is the Rivalry Podcast. Jace, JP, your garbage-free sports podcast focused only on the Michigan-Ohio State football rivalry. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on YouTube. Follow us at RivalPod on Twitter. JP is going to pull up Wheel Route to get us started. While he does that, big thanks to Elevated Integrity Construction for sponsoring the podcast this season. If you are doing a home build, church build, not only do they do the construction, they'll do the design element as well. If you have a project, go with Integrity. ElevatedIntegrity.com, ElevatedIntegrity.com. We are thankful for their support of the podcast in season 4, in which we're still not having the ad-free version of this Wheel Route. Go ahead and spin that bad boy. Let's see what happens here.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This works.
Does it though?
I mean, yeah.
Man, that wheel just spins forever.
Sometimes I feel like 1 week it's going to spin forever.
What are we going to go with here? Least favorite player, past or present? Let's go with present.
Okay.
Least favorite player, present. On Michigan. Like, you pick for Michigan, I'll pick for Ohio State.
Yeah, perfect.
Man, CJ Stroud.
Is it because he's so good?
It's because he is softer than toilet paper. My goodness. This is the kid. This is the kid who last year said, my Heisman moment, and this is not, I'm not... Check me on this. He said his Heisman moment was a rushing touchdown against Michigan that was called back for offensive holding. How is that? So your Heisman moment never happened, is what you're saying.
It just didn't count.
And then he also talked about having the flu and why that meant that they couldn't beat Michigan. Just, dude is not a good leader. He's a good quarterback. He's just not a leader of men. So that's my pick.
Does it have to be a player?
You can take the coach if you need to take the coach. Go ahead. You can do it.
Jim Harbaugh.
Because he's so good?
No. No, I don't know what it is.
What do you have against Jim?
How much time do we have on this podcast? I don't know what it is about him that just grinds my gears. I just have no idea what it is about that man. Because originally I was going to say Blake Corum, but it was.
How can you hate Blake Corum?
I'm going to give you some credit.
Sorry. It's the Rivalry Podcast. We're supposed to yell. That's what the people want.
I was going to say Blake Corum because he is, for this year, the only Michigan player that scares me. And so,
just going to jot that down real quick. We'll revisit that clip later.
He is, but I didn't want to say him. I like watching him. He's super fun. But Harbaugh, I try to find some silver lining of to like the guy. And every time I hear him talk in a press conference, I just can't stand it. I just get super annoyed. So I didn't go with the player. I went with him.
That's okay.
But if I have to choose a player, I'll go
2 for 1. I thought we were doing current play. Chad Henne. What has Chad Henne ever done to you?
He ruined my Cleveland Browns playoff hopes.
Yeah, he did do that.
And so, as if the Browns don't already make me sad enough, I have to watch Chad Henne do it. So
that was a good time. I had no dog in that fight. It was really enjoyable to watch.
It was not a fun time.
Speaking of coaches, let's go ahead and start with Ohio State Rutgers. Schiano versus Day. Who would you take in a fight?
Schiano.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
He did the little
finger point
move is.
Like, I think Ryan Day has a shot if he keeps the beard.
No chance.
Not even?
No chance. Dude, Schiano is Jersey bred. There's just, have you been to Jersey?
I have.
Are ruthless.
It's scary.
Schiano is like Godfather-esque. When he did this, pointed out.
Why do you think Ryan Day had to apologize after? He's like, okay, okay, man, like back off. It's okay. So a little bit of a dust up there. What is your perspective on? And by the way, if you're not familiar with it or you missed it, the score was about 49-10, and was it Jesse Mirko, right? The punter.
Yeah.
Jesse Mirko is an Australian style punter, so he rolls out to the right, and there's just nobody there. So he tucks the ball, runs for about 20 yards. Gets the first down, gets into plus territory, and takes a late hit from Aaron Cruikshank.
An obviously.
Very clearly hit.
He was numerous steps out, had slowed down.
So the players get into a dust up. Schiano comes over, and he and Day are screaming at each other. Became a whole thing. What's your perspective on that? Because that was, someone on the Fan described it this way, and I'll borrow it. The most interesting thing that's ever happened in Rutgers, Ohio State.
Honestly, so fair that it hurts. So fair.
What do you think about it?
I actually was a little bit sad about it.
Why?
And I know this makes it sound like it's the complete opposite mindset of what you are when you're an athlete. I'm a super competitive person, but I still think that there are limits. At the end of the day, it is a game. At the end of the day, most of these people, granted they're over 18, but they're still young adults. I mean, they're 18, max like 22. They're still essentially kids. And I just thought it was a dangerous play. I think he was clearly out. He had kind of given himself up. He had slowed his momentum down. It wasn't close. And the Cruikshank came full speed. I mean, an obvious dirty hit. It's football. The chances for an injury for something like that are crazy. And I hate to kind of be that guy. But at the end of the day,
you are.
But here I am, and I'm not ashamed. I actually saw numerous things on Twitter that made me sad from both sides of the ball, where Ohio State fans were saying, if you're going to make that call, you're accepting that. And same thing for Rutgers fans, where they were saying he deserved every bit of that. And I would just disagree. I'm also of the mindset of, you don't like it, stop it. You shouldn't be down 39 points. You should essentially shut up and play football. Go out there, and you don't like that they're beating you up, smack them during a play that's legal. The dirty hits, I'm never a fan. I'll never root for, especially when it's younger guys in college. It's too much of a risk.
You're taking a punter too. I mean, Aaron Cruikshank is taking on a punter. Come on.
Aaron Cruikshank is like 165 pounds soaking wet, and it wasn't like he absolutely laid the guy out. He put a good hit on him, but to me, it was just too dangerous of a play. Had the punter actually been injured on that, I think a lot of people's mindset would be changed for sure. That. And I don't see what the difference is between him being injured and not. The result of the play, you just shut up, do your talking, shove him, whatever you want to do. I'm fine with that, but super unnecessary.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you to an extent where I'm never going to say it's okay to take a cheap shot like that. Here's where I land. I heard, again, the Fan was talking about this, and I was like, okay, let me see what as a Michigan guy, let me see what Ohio State media is talking about. And they talked about Jesse Mirko's situational awareness to go, as you roll out, if you've got green in front of you, you take it. You just go, as a punter, you go. I'm going to be on the other side of that and say, situational awareness says it's 49-10 or whatever it was. It doesn't matter what's in front of you. You punt the football.
But what mindset does it teach your kids if you're going out there and telling them to hold off? You're wanting to teach. That's the one thing that Ohio State didn't have last year, is that edge of, we're going to go out there and we're going to just play until the whistle blows.
But you're faking a punt, though. I'm not talking about like going for it on 4th and 1 and plus 2. I'm talking about you're faking a punt up 39 points. So no, I'm not going to go as far as to say he deserved a cheap shot. But I get it. I guess that's as far as I'll go. No, he didn't deserve it. I get the frustration from Rutgers. And again, because that one of the errors that was made, though, was assuming that Ryan Day called that fake punt. He did not call that. And I think that's why he apologized to Schiano after to go, 100%. Hey, man, I respect you. I didn't make that call. I think Mirko's got to be smart enough to go, this is not the time to do that. I don't know. That's my perspective.
I can see that point. I also think it was,
I also don't disagree that if you want to stop it, stop it. Yeah, I don't disagree with that either.
39 points and then all of a sudden act prideful. Where was your pride when you were down, when you were tied 7-7 and you were playing? I mean, to me, keep the same energy. If you're going to act all big and tough and do all this other stuff and act prideful, bro, you're down 39 points. Like, you've lost 9 of every single time you play Ohio State, they blow you out. Like, show some pride for that.
You know what, though? I'll say this. good teams win, great teams cover. And Ohio State let off the gas after that and did not cover this game. So, and I'll also say this. I turned the game on right after that muffed punt. And I remember I watched Rutgers go up 7-0 and I turned the game off because that's how I want to choose to remember that football game. Is the last time I saw it live, Rutgers was leading. And who's to say what happened after that?
I can tell you exactly what happened. I was watching the entire thing. Obviously, I'm a Rutgers fan too, so it was kind of like
that's just a no win for you.
Well, Ohio State's always number one. I always want to see them win. Rutgers, I just want to see improvement. I wanted them to go in there and not make it a close game, but like give me something to look forward to the rest of the season.
They forced a couple turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, and I even said something. If you follow us at RivalPod on Twitter,
good plug.
Shameless, where I talked when it was 28-7, and I said it's 28-7, but this game is weird, and it was. Ohio State, in my opinion, and maybe this is like. I don't even
just say the thing, man. It's a podcast.
Not entitled, but like to me, Ohio State should have won 60 something to like 3. It shouldn't have been remote. 39 points was not a correct differential in points for these two teams talent wise. Yeah. So to me, you look at that and you go, well, they won 49-10. And the Ohio State fan in me goes, yeah, but it should have been 60 something to 3. Like we should have. That's the
fan mentality. That's the fan mentality, though. But then look at what could have had what happened with Georgia the last 2 weeks, where someone, and I don't know where it originated, but someone described it as playing with your food. Where Georgia let Kent State hang around for a long time. Georgia didn't lead Missouri until less than 4 minutes to go in that game, or less than 5 to go in the game. Missouri is horrible,
awful,
absolutely terrible. So you at least have to balance it out and go, you know what, though? We didn't do that. We took care of our business the right way.
Yeah, 100%.
Before we look briefly at Michigan State here, I feel like we got to finish off with Rutgers to the Rose Bowl right here. Because this is now 2 conference losses. It's not good. It's not good. It's on life support. It's not done, but it's on life support. It's on life support.
The flag is over here for a reason. I think Rutgers to the Rose Bowl is officially just Rutgers to any bowl, please.
No, you cannot yet. Not yet.
Have you seen the rest of our schedule?
I have, in fact. You have
don't.
You have Nebraska. It's a win.
Not confident.
Indiana. That's a win.
Not confident.
Minnesota's a loss.
For sure.
Michigan's a loss.
Sure.
Michigan State is a win. Michigan State is terrible. Can we take one more Zen moment also? I know we're tangenting. This is the 3rd straight loss by Michigan State. Can we just... Mel Tucker is signed to a 10-year, $95 million contract.
Yikes. It's about to be 4.
Penn State is a maybe for Rutgers to win that one.
Are you a Rutgers fan or am I?
Here's the thing. If you're Rutgers, you don't have to finish top of the Big Ten.
No.
You have to finish 3rd. You have to finish 3rd. This is of any year the best chance for both Michigan and Ohio State to make the playoff. Because the Big 12 is trash. Minus Kansas. We respect you, Kansas.
I cannot wait for that game.
We respect number 17, Kansas. This is a Kansas Stan podcast now. But the Big 12 is trash outside of Kansas.
And TCU.
No. And the Pac-12 is terrible. So all you have to do if you're Rutgers is finish 3rd. Behind Michigan and Ohio State. The only team that's going to stand in your way is Penn State. If you can beat Penn State, you're going to get there. Rutgers, the Rose Bowl is still alive.
I'll give you Nebraska. I'll give you Indiana as potential.
Sure. I'll take that.
Wins.
I'll take that.
But that only puts them at 5.
And then Michigan State, Penn State, and maybe Maryland.
Maryland is
8-4.
Maryland's going to
the worst team to ever make the Rose Bowl, but you'd still make it. How many Schianos are you giving Rutgers the Rose Bowl at this point?
What did I say? 3.5 last week. It's down to a 0.5. Not even a full Schiano.
0.5 Schiano.
Not even a full Schiano.
Even the whole dust up thing doesn't get you like a little bit like a full Schiano? Just a half. Okay.
No, because you're down 39.
That's
I don't know.
Fair.
I'm over it at that point.
Next up on the schedule for Ohio State is Michigan State, which I don't know if you've heard, but Mel Tucker is signed to a 10-year, $95 million contract and has lost 3 straight games. And their next games are, in order, Ohio State, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, maybe.
No, they fired Paul Chryst, and Michigan. So
2 of those are for sure losses.
I would say so. I don't even know what to tell you about Michigan State to say, yeah, this could be a ball game. They are not good.
No, not at all. Right now, Ohio State's 25.5 point favorites. I forget what the over-under was, but it was I think a majority of it will be Ohio State. My final prediction for this, 42-14. I think...
Boy, we are so close on these.
I think Michigan State, I don't think it'll be close, but I think they'll get 14 just because it's at home. If it was at the Shoe, it would be like 42-3. I think they'll get a couple of scores, one being late, and
if you're Michigan State, what else do you have to play for? You've got what, the chance to upset a team like Ohio State, and you've got beat Michigan. That's all that's left on your schedule. So I expect them to come out swinging. I expect them to come out and go, this isn't like that. An upset win of this magnitude salvages, at least in part, salvages the season for Michigan State. I don't think they get it, but I would expect their absolute best, because that's what Michigan's going to get in a couple weeks. Is it doesn't matter what the record is, it's always Michigan State's absolute best. That being said, let me encapsulate Michigan State's season by describing to you the final play against Maryland. Okay, this is a double-digit deficit with 3 seconds to go. And Peyton Thorne, on 4th down with no time left, down 2 touchdowns, ran 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, which you can't do, and threw the ball out of bounds. Michigan State, right. 2022. Yeah, 42-20 Ohio State.
Okay, 20 points.
I think they get a couple touchdowns, kick a couple field goals along the way. This was from 11 Warriors, and this is one of those statistics that I go, how in the world is this real? The last 5 meetings between Michigan State and Ohio State has outscored them. I don't even know how this is real. 216-38.
Gross.
That's impossible.
Gross.
Yikes. So thoughts and prayers for Michigan State this weekend, but not really. This is
going to be a good time had by all except Michigan State fans.
It's interesting for me because as a Michigan man, I always will cheer for Michigan State in this game, but I'm never upset when they lose. You know what I mean? Like
if it happens, you're pumped.
Like, will I be pulling like crazy for Michigan State? Sure, I will, because I hate Ohio State more than anything. But when Michigan State gets beat by 50, it's going to be fun.
Honestly, that's probably the best game of the day because you win either way.
As a reminder, Mel Tucker is signed to a 10-year, $95 million contract.
It's not just a game, it's the game. You're listening to The Rivalry.
Let's talk about Michigan. Going into Kinnick Stadium, where they have not won since, I believe, 2005. Now, granted, they don't play Iowa every year. They don't play at Iowa every year. But Jim Harbaugh described Kinnick Stadium as the place where top 5 teams go to die. The last time that Iowa did not beat a top 5 team at home was 2017 Penn State, which I believe was the Saquon Barkley touchdown pass with no time left on the clock. The fact that Michigan came out of there with a win, with a double-digit win and covering is really, really impressive to me.
I agree.
Do you really?
I
was giving pause so that you could roll your eyes or make one of those noises or something. You didn't do that.
Basically the entire time I watched Iowa's offense, so I just don't know if I have it in me anymore.
That's fair.
Because, man, that team's real bad.
If they could have any sort of competent offense, they'd be a really good team.
Honestly, that's all I thought the entire game. I mean, Michigan went out and they did what they needed to do to pull away. If Iowa's defense or offense was even moderately competent,
it would have been a much more interesting game.
You would have been stressed.
Well, I was stressed there was a Michigan. I don't know if I would even say they let off the gas, but when Iowa scored to open the 4th quarter and make it 20-7, I thought, okay, if we go 3 and out on the next drive, I'm going to be stressed. And that's what they did. Iowa then took, and I think this is where, as Michigan fans, we get into our own heads a little bit to go, well, we just let them back in the game. Okay, slow down. Iowa then took a 10-minute drive, 7 to 10 minutes, somewhere in there, a 10-minute drive, and ended up with 0 points. Thanks, Iowa. We will take it from here. Because again, at the end of the day, the final is 27-14.
Yeah.
The last time, this sounds like a homer, but Joel Klatt, who hated on Michigan the entire game, by the way, even acknowledged that last touchdown, Michigan had Mike Morris was on the bench. They were in prevent defense. They were super soft in their coverage. If you take that away, no one's at full speed at this point.
Yeah.
27-7 up till that point. That's a pretty darn good football game for Michigan. The nation's number one scoring defense. Michigan put 27 points up on them with, here's the key, no turnovers.
And that's what we talked about.
That's exactly what they need to do to win this game.
That's 100% what we talked about last week on the podcast, is that they could not commit those turnovers. It was one of those games where McCarthy didn't really have to do much. His stats weren't that impressive.
Yeah.
He managed the game, didn't turn the ball over, and you just let your running backs do what they do best.
And that's exactly what they needed in that game. Rushing yards, 172 to 35.
Yeah.
Just let Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards
all you need to do every single game.
Well, and I think part of it too is it reminded me of really the Washington game last year, where not as bad. So hear me out on this, but where the question was, well, why won't McNamara throw against Washington? Why don't we just run the ball? Because Washington had a really good secondary, and you didn't need to do it. That's the same thing that McCarthy went in with this one. Is he passed the ball around? Schoonmaker had quite a few catches, and all that sort of thing. But when you've got that good of a secondary, you want to know how you don't turn the ball over? You let your running backs go for about 6 yards a carry.
Yep.
And you swing it around a little bit. You don't need to put yourself in those situations. So I was really, really impressed, especially after they put the ball on the ground 2 or 3 times last game, even though it didn't always turn the ball over. They didn't do any of that stuff. There was one play where McCarthy got hit, and it was ruled a fumble because it went backwards. And there wasn't a whole lot of mistake. It was a pretty mistake-free game for Michigan. I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, I think walking away from it, Iowa's defense is still legit. Even after putting up, I think that was the toughest defense Michigan's played by far.
And it probably will be.
Honestly, it was a great test for them.
Yep.
It is what we thought it was going to be.
They are who we thought they were.
Iowa has no offense. We knew if you scored 2 touchdowns, you have a great chance to win against them because Michigan's defense is no slouch.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised by the final score. It's essentially kind of what we thought would happen. I think I even had it at 31-10.
Yeah.
So it was relatively close. I walked away. I wouldn't say more impressed with Michigan. It was exactly what I kind of thought was going to happen.
They took care of the business that they were supposed to take care of. Iowa had allowed 23 points total in the first 4 weeks. Michigan scored 27. I'm going to take that. So the last couple of weeks for Michigan, the Maryland offense was a test of Michigan's defense, and I felt like, again, was it perfect? No, it wasn't, but I felt that Michigan's defense passed. This week was a test of Michigan's offense, and I felt like Michigan's offense passed.
Yep, I'll agree with that.
And again, was it perfect? No, there were a handful of 3 and outs back to back to back. You also scored 27 points on the number 1 scoring defense in the country. So, you got to balance that stuff out. They played a good football game. Up next for Michigan is Indiana. And my goodness, the offensive line is very bad.
Oh,
the Hoosiers are terrible.
I know you're a Michigan guy, but let's be honest, you don't even really want to watch this game.
I really do, though.
I really do. So bad. They're 21.5-point favorites right now. I don't know how that number is so low.
Mike Morris, I hope you're hungry because Michigan's going to be playing in the offensive backfield this whole game.
I think
they just lost to Nebraska.
Yeah. How?
By double digits.
I just look at this game and I think McCarthy's going to do essentially nothing. He's not going to need to. You're going to hand the ball off to Corum. He's going to have 200 yards rushing. My prediction for this, 49-7 Michigan. I think
we're so close on this.
I think it's going to be such a blowout that McCarthy's not going to have to throw the ball. He will at the beginning. He'll probably get a touchdown or 2.
We'll see Alan Bowman come in.
Once it gets to be 21-28 nothing at that point, I think you're just going to let off the gas. Not obviously let them score really. They'll get a touchdown late game. But you're just going to run the ball. You're going to let time go quick, and you're going to head back to Ann Arbor.
49-16 is what I have.
Indiana's not scoring 16.
Indiana, though, typically plays Michigan in these bizarre games. No matter how, it's almost like Michigan State, where no matter how much Michigan's favored by, Indiana typically tries to stick around and do weird stuff,
and you always struggle when it's at Indiana.
In the Michigan beat, they often call it the Indiana game. Because it's just its own unique microcosm of weirdness, much like this podcast. I'll leave you with this. I think Indiana's only hope is to maybe control the clock and the ball. They rushed for 67 yards on Nebraska. So again, 49-16 for Michigan.
It's going to be gross. It's going to be gross.
If you are following us on Twitter at RivalPod, which you should be, or if you're on Instagram at 1049 The River, your score prediction for either the Ohio State or the Michigan game could win you $25 to Canes. delicious. So let us buy you lunch. It doesn't even have to be a good prediction. Have you seen our predictions? It doesn't even have to be good. Just throw us a prediction on Instagram at 1049 The River, on Twitter at RivalPod, and you may end up with lunch from Raising Cane's. JP, the last segment we got to get through here is Stupid Genius, which is our upset pick of the week.
All right.
This is after this was instituted for the App State Texas A&M game, where I felt real good. It has been very bad.
Yeah.
Nebraska over Oklahoma did not happen. Wake Forest over Clemson didn't happen. Alabama, Arkansas was a terrible pick, then a pretty smart pick, then an awful pick at the end of the day. What do you have this week for your upset pick?
Texas Tech over Oklahoma State.
Yep.
That's what you had too?
Yep. 10-point dogs for the Red Raiders. I spent close to 2 years in Stillwater. They love Oklahoma State. They love their football program. They're not quite able to get over the hump.
Yeah.
Okay. So whether that be losing to Oklahoma late in the season, whether it be, the loss to Baylor in the Big 12 championship game, we're literally that close to making the playoff. I just don't think that they can get it done. Texas Tech already beat Texas.
They've played a crazy hard schedule. Like, this Texas Tech team is not bad. They've had tough competition, and I think it's made them ready for games like this.
Here's the other thing. This is a bit of a personal issue that I have with Oklahoma State.
Of course it is.
When I was in Stillwater, someone had offered my wife and I free tickets to Oklahoma State, Texas. The stadium was 2 miles from our apartment. I said, yeah, I'd love to go to Oklahoma State, Texas. And then my dear wife stopped me and said, oh, we're getting dinner with the Smiths that night. So I did not go to Oklahoma State, Texas. And I know it's not the Cowboys' fault that we had dinner plans that kept us from going to that marquee matchup. But I'm kind of still upset about it.
The Smiths would have understood, I'm sure.
That's what I said. Fine. It's okay. Texas Tech, 10-point underdogs. We're going to exercise a few demons this week.
We've been on the same page too much recently.
And it hasn't been for better.
Yeah,
okay?
that's why I don't like it, because I thought maybe my pick would be right. And now that you've also guessed it,
now it's just guaranteed to not happen. Way to go, man. Way to go.
You're the one that did it. So
subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter at RivalPod for live tweets, score predictions, contests, and more. And make sure to follow us wherever you're listening now for new episodes every Wednesday. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.